The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
I'm Vinnie Politan. The subject of my investigation is the abduction of Savannah Guthrie's mom, Nancy, an 84-year-old widow living a quiet life in the beautiful Catalina foothills of Tucson until she was abducted. Here's the story. When 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie didn't show up for church on Sunday morning, her family's concern turned into a full-blown criminal investigation. The mother of Today Show anchor Savannah Guthrie was last seen around 9:45 p.m. on Saturday, January 31st at her home in the Catalina foothills north of Tucson, Arizona. She was later reported missing after relatives found no trace of her inside. Investigators quickly declared her residence a crime scene, saying evidence indicated she did not leave voluntarily and was likely taken against her will, possibly from her bed in the middle of the night. Forensic teams found blood matching Nancy's DNA on her front porch. Security cameras in her pacemaker app were disabled around the same time she vanished. But the FBI was able to recover lost images of a suspect. And now the search for Nancy and that suspect is in high gear. The intensity has been turned up big time here. And it just seems like things are moving a lot more quickly, and there's an opportunity here for investigators to get some real leads in all this. Let's bring in Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas. Let's start with those videos. There's been a lot of talk about the videos. Obviously, it's perhaps one of the biggest clues in all of this so far. Explain to us, I want you to break it down a little bit. What do we see in those videos?
Well, Vinny, the short answer, what we see is what looks like something out of a movie. Now, it's black and white footage from what appears to be a doorbell camera. Now, we see this suspect. He has a hoodie over his face. We don't know if it's a man or woman, but let's take a look at the video in its entirety right now. All right, Vinny, such a creepy video there, but let's take some still images of this video and really analyze who and what we are dealing with here. So this first image here, it looks as if the suspect is walking up with some sort of reflectors on either shoulder, and in the middle there where, presumably his face is, it looks like he maybe has a possible flashlight, possibly, hanging out of his or her mouth. Now, Vinny, we move on. We mentioned those reflectors on each shoulder. We now see in this image that those reflectors are part of the straps on a book bag or a backpack that they were wearing when they came up to the door. And speaking of that backpack, Vinny, we move on to another image. We see that's a full backpack on their back. I don't know why you need a full backpack full of whatever they have in that bag to kidnap an 84-year-old woman or do anything late at night at someone's residence. Then we move on to this one, and this one's the most concerning, this other image. If you look down kind of towards the bottom right of the image, towards the person's waistband area, you see that it's a gun hanging in front of them. Presumably a loaded gun, a deadly weapon that they brought to this house, Nancy Guthrie's house. We move on, Vinny, again, looking at this suspect here, seeing what they have, these leather gloves on their hands. Looks to be thick leather gloves there. And Vinny, I can think of one other famous case that involved some questionable leather gloves back in the 90s. So here we are with gloves again in this image. And lastly, Vinny, here, the image of this suspect with what looks to maybe be a possible flashlight in their mouth, or it could be maybe a shiny gold or silver tooth reflecting off the light, because we do know that neighborhood is a very dark area, so any light would probably reflect off of that camera image. But that's what we break down the video, Vinnie. Those are concerning, images of this suspect walking around the house. But Vinnie, speaking of those gloves, we have this image obtained by the New York Post of a glove that investigators found in the area of Nancy Guthrie's house. Now, we don't know if this glove is actually connected to this person we're seeing in the videos, but according to the New York Post, Vinnie, they say FBI agents have recovered a black glove from a roadside near Nancy Guthrie's house, potentially a major clue in the search for the masked thug who is suspected of abducting the 84-year-old woman, the Post can reveal. Detectives found the clothing item which resembles the pair worn by the armed perpetrator caught on video about 1.5 miles from the home of Today Show host Savannah Guthrie's mother. So, Vinnie, investigators have found this glove. We see this video of this potential suspect here. Regardless, whoever this person is, clearly they showed up to do something inappropriate at that residence.
All right, Cody's going to stick around. That brings us to the first question in our investigation. Does this look like a professional kidnapper? The image of him, the mannerisms, what he's wearing, what he's doing, what is going on here? Joining me, retired police officer after 2 decades and an expert at analyzing crime scenes, Dr. Mike McCutcheon is with us, and retired police commander, host of the podcast, Gardens of Evil Inside the Zion Society Cult, which you need to download and listen to. Mike King is with us. The podcast is blowing up everywhere, and money's being raised for charity in that as well. So please, folks, download that. Great to have you both here. Mike, let me start with you. What is your gut telling you? What is the evidence telling you? Does this seem or look like or present... Oh, we have 2 mics. I'm sorry. Mike King. Thank you. We got Dr. Mike over here, Mike King over here. Strike you as a professional kidnapper?
You know, Vinnie, I don't see that. I find myself waffling a little bit on this about whether it's professional or not. I mean, it appears that there's preparation. It appears that there's planning. I think a lot of fantasy involved, but the execution of the plan is where things start really falling apart, in my opinion. And we can't minimize the fact that the suspect comes hooded up. He comes wearing gloves. He comes using cover and concealment as he approaches the home. And to Cody's point earlier, the wonder about whether it could be a tooth reflecting or a flashlight, just before this video picks up in another clip of video, there's a clip of the suspect coming from the left-hand side as we're looking at the video, or from the gravel area of the yard onto the sidewalk, approaching the porch and that threshold area. And we see that flashlight come on for just a fraction of a second on the ground. I suspect, because it's pitch black, that's happening because he's unsure of his footing and whether there's a step he's going to trip on or something like that. But nonetheless, we have to accept the fact that it appears that he comes kind of suited up. I think, again, the fantasy, the preparation, the planning that's gone on to it, or into it, and the fact that he's using cover and concealment and coming in. But the moment he sees that camera, we see him go from this kind of organized state to disorganized, and we see him kind of turn, and you could just see the cogs in his brain twisting as he's looking to his left in that garden area next to the porch where the pot is for something that might work. He works his way out to the threshold. There at the threshold, he grabs those desert plants and brings them in with an attempt to somehow cover up that camera, and then it appears gets pretty frustrated and leaves. But bottom line in all of that is they were able to kidnap Mrs. Guthrie. And so at least they got away with that part of it. But hopefully things like this glove show us that the net's being cast wide enough that they're going to find information that'll bring him to justice.
Yeah, I'm shocked that he's surprised that there's a camera at the doorbell. I mean, go to I don't know what the percent is these days around the country, but it's extremely common. All right, Dr. Mike, let's pick up on the glove. Mike King is talking about that. Your thoughts about the glove being found 1.5 miles from the scene, and for purposes of this discussion, let's presume it's a match. Let's presume that it is, in fact, the glove worn by the suspect in the video. What does that tell you, if anything, about whether or not this looks like a professional kidnapper or not?
So I would say it sounds unique, but if I were planning this, having expertise, I looked at all of the things that someone who was planning this, who had experience, they wouldn't be doing. If they were going to get rid of evidence, it wouldn't be, I know 1.5 miles seems close. That's not very far, particularly if you have a missing person. 1.5 miles is not a far distance. You're not going to throw evidence out the window or within miles. You would keep it. It's not like you have to get rid of it. You have other evidence in the car, a person. So it's not like a robbery where you took something and then you're trying to get rid of evidence. So that shows me that it's very amateur. And the uniform that he's wearing, the clothes that he's wearing reflective gear. He's trying to work under the night and try to be a burglar to go in and not be seen. And he's wearing reflective gear. Again, poor planning. And I can tell you with great confidence, there's no military or police officer or anyone who has training with a weapon who is going to store their weapon in the front of their pants like that. It's not even in a secure holster. It looks like it's kind of sagging down. That to me, again, tells me that it is not someone that's professional. So they're leaving evidence behind. And then the other piece is they took 40 minutes inside a house to try to kidnap an 84-year-old woman, and you were in there for 40 minutes. The longer you're in there, the more evidence that you have potential of leaving behind. He didn't cover his mouth, where if you have any type of saliva or of anything coming out, you have DNA contamination. So all of those things, and with discarding that glove so close to the crime scene, I can't imagine that this had a lot of planning. I think it was like Mike said earlier, where it was kind of that fantasy, like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. We're going to get a mask. I'm going to go up, and you have some planning, but certainly not a professional plan.
Yeah. The potted plant for the camera, Mike King.
Yeah.
That's nutty. That's like, it's almost childish at that point. You've got this huge backpack. You've got apparently a gun, but you don't have anything to handle a camera, like, oh, I don't know, a piece of tape.
You know, Vinny, and I love what Dr. Mike said, because the idea of how he's approaching looks like he's really confident. He actually is pretty dang calm when things fall apart and he sees that camera on the door. But what I think is also kind of interesting, and Mike mentioned this, is the fact of this holster in the front. You can see him with his left hand, and if we were to take the location of that handle on the weapon, which appears to be a semi-automatic weapon, inside of what appears to be a revolver-type holster, what he does is he's constantly fondling that thing with his left hand. So this is a guy who's not comfortable wearing a weapon. He's not used to wearing a weapon. He certainly isn't trained in wearing one in a duty kind of sense, like a police officer or a military officer. And if he is right-handed, which I think he is by the looks of the way things are happening, he's got this cross-draw kind of holster, and it all kind of fits with pop culture of the moving them, flaring the guns around and acting tough and everything else. It just really screams of nonverbal behavior.
All right, Dr. Mike and Mike are sticking around. We'll see them a little bit later in the show. Coming up next, is the FBI searching for evidence or a body?
We love you, Mom.
We love you, Mom.
We love you, Mom. Stay strong.
We love you.
The Court TV podcast will return.
Every reference to Nancy, a white female, 84 years of age, 5 million bills, Colorado Blue, things after 2,200 hours.
She's 84 years old. Her health, her heart is fragile. She lives in constant pain.
Nobody's eliminated, but we just really don't have enough to say, this is our suspect, this is our guy.
Everyone is looking for you, Mommy, everywhere.
So the Pima County Sheriff leading all of this, the investigation from the beginning, but doing the right thing and reaching out to the FBI to have them come in and have them help. And it seems like they are doing a lot in this investigation. Let's bring back in Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas and ask him about what is the FBI saying?
Well, Vinny, they say they're searching, and clearly it's becoming this vast, extensive search because it's that search that led to them finding a glove resembling the glove worn by the potential suspect that we've seen in that black and white doorbell camera footage. But Vinny, of course, in the days since Nancy went missing, we've seen footage of this search in different places, including here on Nancy's property, where they are searching the septic system on the property, which is very interesting. You see them digging down in that manhole. It's unclear what they were exactly looking for or why they were looking there, but Vinny, that feels very specific to be searching a property's septic and sewage system. And then, Vinny, on February 10th, we see here, over a week after Nancy's disappearance, as with any investigation, we see the FBI personnel knocking on doors, looking through the brush in the surrounding area, and they also had a chopper in the air. And Vinny, on the same day, a photographer caught an image of this FBI agent right here in a culvert, which is one of those, concrete structures you see under roads or railways and driveways that allows water to run underneath them. Again, don't know exactly what they're looking for in that culvert, why they were there. Again, seems very specific. Now, Vinny, here's also what the FBI said about the search in a statement. They said, this morning, numerous FBI agents are conducting an extensive search along multiple roadways in the Catalina foothills area related to the Nancy Guthrie investigation. We are asking the media and motorists to follow all traffic laws and to remain especially cautious when passing law enforcement personnel near the roadways. We appreciate the assistance and support we have received from the Tucson community. The FBI continues to offer a $50,000 reward for information leading to the recovery of Nancy Guthrie. And then, of course, Vinny, they gave the tip line. And Vinny, you know as well as I know, I was out there in the Tucson area in Nancy Guthrie's neighborhood. And again, it's not your typical subdivision. It's pretty vast. It's pretty expansive. The houses sit on their own acreage. It's also kind of in the middle of the desert. It's what they call a dark sky community. There's no street lights on the roads by the houses. So, their search has to be a little expansive here, Vinny, a little intense to search to cover that whole Catalina foothills area out there in Tucson.
All right, Cody's going to stick around. Thank you, Cody. And that brings us to the next question in our investigation. It's about what's the goal here? What's the goal? Is the FBI searching for evidence or a body? Evidence or a body? Joining me now to talk about all this, host of the podcast, Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi. Tony Bruschi is here, and retired FBI Special Agent and Professor Kenneth Gray. Great to have you both here. Something else I've seen video of from out there, I've seen them at the sister's house taking stuff out of the mailbox, like the mail, taking the mail out of the mailbox. So what are your thoughts here, Kenneth Gray? I'll start with you. What do you think the FBI is doing here? Are they searching for evidence here, or are they searching for a body? Because, again, the allegation is that this was some sort of an abduction, potentially, ransom, potentially, but we just don't know.
Yeah, that's true, Vinny. Thanks for having me. I think that the Bureau has sufficient amount of manpower there right now that they devoted to this case that they can do both. They are searching for both evidence, and they're also searching for Nancy. Alive or dead, they're searching for Nancy. And so evidence may lead to Nancy, and also the search for that evidence may lead to a possible prosecution if they find the person responsible for her abduction.
Tony, the game changer was that video. You've got an image of a suspect, someone who obviously is up to no good in the middle of the night in front of Nancy's home. And then after that, the intensity is turned up in the search here. What are your thoughts tonight?
Yeah. I think you really have to watch what they're doing right now, and not necessarily what they're saying. We're at day 11. The FBI has agents searching culverts, drainage washes, roadside brush, pull-offs between Nancy's home and the major routes out of Tucson. That's not how you look for a living hostage. And I still am holding out hope, and I know everyone is, and then we still need to do that. But what we're looking at here is probably a little combination of both going on, quite honestly. Evidence recovery operation or remain search, and the language is shifting to the FBI reward says recovery of Nancy Guthrie, not safe return, not rescue, recovery. The FBI doesn't usually do accidental phrasing. There's no continued communication between the family and the kidnappers. Ransom deadlines obviously have passed. The man they detained last night was released without charges. The warrant was executed. Doors were broken down. Vehicles were searched, and they came away with nothing. 18,000 tips and still no suspect and no Nancy. But the credit is where credit is due here. The hostage rescue team being deployed is good. Last night, disciplined law enforcement. You want to prepare for every variable, including the one where maybe you find her alive, and God, I hope we do. But being prepared for a variable and that variable being the likely outcome are two very different things. An 84-year-old woman with a pacemaker who needs daily medication to survive 11 days out, the math is brutal, and the FBI knows how to do the math. I think they're searching for both, but the ground activity tells you where the weight of this investigation has shifted.
Kenneth Gray, what are your thoughts about taking the mail from the daughter, Annie's home, straight from the mailbox, confiscating it? Is that, you think they're looking for communication from a kidnapper at that moment?
So I don't think they know exactly what they may find inside that mail, but so far the communications has not set up any specific route exchange of information between the kidnapper and the family. And so the kidnapper may try to establish a different means of communication, such as by mail. Mail would be safer than using email because email is much more traceable. Regular snail mail, a letter, would be a lot more difficult to trace. But there may be other communications that may be passed to them. I don't know all the details of this investigation, so I can't say what else might be in that mailbox that they might be looking for. But I definitely think that one possibility would be the kidnapper trying to establish a different means of communication.
All right. Tony Bruschi, Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi. Incredible coverage of this and a lot of other true crime stories. Check it out, folks. Kenneth Gray's going to stick around. Still to come. Does the family know more than they're letting on?
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
I'm Vinnie Politan. We continue our investigation of the abduction of Nancy Guthrie, a case with a missing 84-year-old woman, bloodstains outside the house, and mysterious ransom notes. Here's the story. In the quiet Catalina foothills community outside of Tucson, the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie has sharply jolted friends, family, and investigators alike. The 84-year-old mother of Today's Show anchor Savannah Guthrie was reported missing on February 1st after she didn't arrive at a planned Sunday church service, and relatives found her home in unusual disarray. Pima County Sheriff Chris Nano said authorities believe Nancy was abducted from her home against her will, noting that she has limited mobility, requires daily medication, and would not have walked away on her own. Blood matching her DNA was discovered on the front steps, and investigators are analyzing possible ransom notes that reference specific details about her and her home, even as the legitimacy of those notes remains unconfirmed. But Savannah and her siblings have responded, saying, "We will pay." But now the FBI has recovered images of the suspected abductor, and the search for that suspect and Nancy has now intensified. This is so difficult on the family. So difficult. And don't forget, she's a widow and has been a widow for quite some time. Savannah Guthrie, when she was in high school, her dad passed away and her mom was there. Her mom was the rock of that family for so many years. Let's bring in Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas. Cody, how many times have we heard from the family now?
Well, Vinnie, the Guthrie family, Savannah and her siblings, have posted video messages to social media 4 times. Now, early on in those early videos, the first and second videos, we heard them address their mother pleading for her to come home and also addressing the possible kidnapper or kidnappers. Take a listen to this.
On behalf of our family, we want to thank all of you for the prayers for our beloved mom, Nancy. We feel them, and we continue to believe that she feels them too. Our mom is a kind, faithful, loyal, fiercely loving woman of goodness and light. She's funny, spunky, and clever. She has grandchildren that adore her and crowd around her and cover her with kisses.
The light is missing from our lives. Nancy is our mother. We are her children. She is our beacon. She holds fast to joy in all of life's circumstances.
She is 84 years old. Her health, her heart is fragile. She lives in constant pain. She is without any medicine. She needs it to survive. She needs it not to suffer. We too have heard the reports about a ransom letter in the media. As a family, we are doing everything that we can. We are ready to talk. However, we live in a world where voices and images are easily manipulated. We need to know, without a doubt, that she is alive and that you have her. We want to hear from you, and we are ready to listen. Please, reach out to us.
This is Cameron Guthrie. I'm speaking for the Guthrie family. Whoever is out there holding our mother, we want to hear from you. We haven't heard anything directly. We need you to reach out, and we need a way to communicate with you so we can move forward. But first, we have to know that you have our mom. We want to talk to you, and we are waiting for contact.
Now, Vinnie, in the next video, Savannah came out and more directly stated that her and her siblings are willing to pay this alleged ransom. Take a listen to this.
We received your message, and we understand. We beg you now to return our mother to us so that we can celebrate with her. This is the only way we will have peace. This is very valuable to us, and we will pay.
And most recently, Vinnie, Savannah posted to her Instagram this video where she mentions the family going into an hour of desperation. Take a listen.
Hi there, everybody. I wanted to come on and just share a few thoughts as we enter into another week of this nightmare. I just want to say, first of all, thank you so much for all of the prayers and the love that we have felt, my sister and brother and I, and that our mom has felt. Because we believe that somehow, some way, she is feeling these prayers and that God is lifting her even in this moment and in this darkest place. We believe our mom is still out there. We need your help. Law enforcement is working tirelessly around the clock trying to bring her home, trying to find her. She was taken and we don't know where. And we need your help. So I'm coming on just to ask you, not just for your prayers, but no matter where you are, even if you're far from Tucson, if you see anything, if you hear anything, if there's anything at all that seems strange to you, that you report to law enforcement. We are at an hour of desperation, and we need your help.
And Vinnie, you know, the thing is, even with these 4 videos, we've heard so many different things about ransom notes. We've seen the family here address the possible kidnapper or kidnappers. The ransom note deadline that was demanding those millions of Bitcoin has passed, but among all of that, still no sign of Nancy Guthrie.
It's really unreal. And watching those consecutively, you get a much better feeling for the way the family is reacting in those moments. Cody, thanks so much. It brings us to the next question in our investigation, and I think this is another one that is important, especially because you never know what the communication is between the family and law enforcement. Does the family know more than they're letting on? Do they have more information that is the basis for these statements, things that have not been made public, that they have not shared with the public? Still with me, retired police officer Dr. Mike McCutcheon, and joining me, host of Surviving the Survivor podcast, Joel Waldman is here. Joel, I'll start with you. Your thoughts about the family, like from watching the videos that Savannah and her siblings have done, are you reading between the lines that they may know something that's not public and is the basis for what they're saying and how they're saying it?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Vinny. And I just want to say, you know, I met my wife. We were both reporters at KGUN 9 in Tucson, and I know this community intimately. I know a lot of people there, people on the ground, and it has absolutely gripped them, and they are devastated. I mean, I've never seen a story like this, I don't think, in my entire 30-year career. With that said, you know, there's going to be tons of scrutiny on the family, and there have been these return trips by both the FBI and Pima County Sheriff's deputies, specifically to Annie Guthrie's house. But keep in mind, Savannah lives in New York. Cameron, as I understand it, the brother, lives in Vermont, so they're not going to their house. And I think it's really important because it's come up on Surviving the Survivor, my show. You know, people tend to point the finger. We have to listen to law enforcement right now, and they are saying very publicly they have no suspects, no persons of interest. And I've got to think, Vinny, that if Annie or her husband or partner, you know, whatever he is specifically, if they were complicit in this in any way, and of course that Pandora's box was opened by a friend of ours doing some reporting, I would think that by now, and I've had other law enforcement officials tell me this, that this far in, 11 days in, that'd be a very difficult secret to hold on to. And I believe that, you know, they would have cracked. So I think we're looking outside the circle. Nothing would surprise me. The one thing I learned from doing true crime and speaking to amazing, brilliant investigators is you've got to keep all options on the table and can't rule people out until you can rule them out, Vinny.
Dr. Mike McCutcheon, let me ask you, do you think that law enforcement is sharing more with the family, or the family has any more information, or that the family like knows things here more so than they're letting on based upon what we're hearing from them?
Well, I think there's two things to look at. When we say the family, there's individuals within that family. So there may actually be different communication with law enforcement with different members of the family. Now, I don't know that that's the case, but if they did have a suspect or they had a suspicion that one of the family members were involved, maybe they shared different information. Now, again, that's all speculation. Now, when something like this happens, the family is going to have somebody from the FBI, I'll call him a handler, that's going to help them do those communication videos so that they're not saying the wrong thing and that they're saying a message that can be received by the suspected kidnappers. So they're going to have a very close relationship with the law enforcement. Now, whether they're holding something or not, you have to look at if it is intentional or they just don't know. When I'm doing an interview with a victim, you really have to say, everything is important. You may not think it is important, but I need to know everything. And that's the job of the investigator. That's the job of the interviewers, to find there has to be a thread. I don't believe that this was a random case. So there has to be that first thread that's going to connect Nancy to the kidnapper. And that could be a third party. Maybe it's a caretaker who mentions to a brother-in-law who then comes up with the plan. But there has to be a connection here. And they may hold that key without knowing that they hold that key. They may not have shared that they talked to a new maintenance worker or someone who fixed a window or whatever the case may be. And so they may not be intentionally withholding information, but there is that thread. This is not something random, and that's what they have to find. And that's the job of the investigator, to try to extract that information from the family.
Joel Waldman, do you feel like they've turned the corner here and the momentum is picking up and we're going to get some real news soon?
I mean, I sure hope so, Vinny. Last night, and I know you know this, covering it was absolutely bonkers. Did a 4.5-hour live stream because we just kept getting bits and pieces of news coming out every second. Today, a much quieter day. And, there's divided opinion on this amongst investigators who I've talked to. Some who think they've hit a wall, others who believe that they're just obviously keeping everything, very tight to the vest. From a media perspective, I'll tell you, it has been a bit of a disaster. I know Sheriff Chris Nanos, his intentions are good, but they, obviously gave these daily press briefings and then just stopped them completely cold. They're not using their PIOs, their public information officers, to disseminate any information. And that's making it tough because now people are guessing or hypothesizing, well, maybe this family member has something to do with it, or maybe that person has something to do with it. And obviously the investigation is front and center, and they've got to keep the integrity of that intact. But maybe in a case that is this high profile, they've got to give a little information, if just to quell the public, thirst and hunger for this. That part of it has been an unmitigated disaster, but I do hope we get a resolution soon.
All right. Big thanks, Dr. Mike McCutcheon, Joel Waldman, surviving the survivor. Appreciate it, gentlemen. Coming up next, how will law enforcement handle the tens of thousands of tips?
This entire team here, those behind me, and our community are hurting with you.
This is the Court TV Podcast.
Nobody's eliminated, but we just really don't have enough to say, this is our suspect, this is our guy, we know, or our gal. We just don't know that.
It's a frustrating investigation for everyone involved, has to be, but they're working around the clock, they're working hard. Let's get back to Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas. Cody, there was a plea to the public by Savannah Guthrie, and there have been tons of tips. What do we know about them?
Well, yeah, Vinny, we know at least one tip led the FBI to a specific person, a man who says that the FBI detained and questioned him. Now, here he is, Vinny. He told reporters that his name is Carlos Palazuelos. His house is in Rio Rico, which is south of Tucson toward Mexico. And it was searched as part of the investigation. He said he goes to Tucson for work and that he delivers packages. Now, Vinny, a woman who says that she is this man's mother-in-law, she spoke to reporters who reported her name as Josephine or Josefina Maddox. Here she is telling CBS 5 in Arizona that the FBI mentioned that a tip led them to her house and to her son-in-law. Take a listen.
They came out telling us that they had somebody gave a tip that the lady was in my house. I don't know her name. ¿Cómo se llama?
Nancy Guthrie?
That we don't know. We don't know it at all. They only said that they gave a tip that she was in my house. And I told them, you can go in and search my house. There's nobody there. I have nothing to hide.
Now, Vinny, that man has since been released from being detained and questioned. So still, nobody is in custody right now for the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie.
All right, Cody Thomas, great work tonight. Thank you so much. Brings us to the final question in our investigation this hour. How will law enforcement handle the tens of thousands of tips? Still with me, retired police commander Mike King and retired FBI special agent Kenneth Gray. Why are you guys retired and I'm still working? Why is that? Well, okay. Kenneth, I'll begin with you. Tens of thousands of tips are coming in. How do you even manage them?
Yeah, I mean, it's very difficult, especially in a high-profile case like this. The Bureau has a command post set up. That command post has agents. It has analysts. It has support staff. They are taking those tips. They are feeding it to a database. They are going through it. They're taking out the hottest leads, and they are sending them right out to the field right away, having people go out and run down those tips, those leads. But in addition to the information that is coming in from the people that are responding to this plea for information, there's also leads that are being generated by the investigation itself. And so that requires additional manpower. So the Bureau brought in a lot of personnel. They're going to be very busy running down these leads. Additionally, leads may be sent outside of Tucson. If somebody gives information and says the person is in Chicago, the Bureau will send a lead to an agent in Chicago to go and run down that lead.
Mike King, this is such a massive story, and it's generating a lot of information, which is what you need and hope, but it's a lot to manage.
You're not kidding, and I really appreciated that baseline, because what I've learned before retirement, Vinnie, was as we work those major kinds of crimes, one of the things we try to do is also look at it geographically and look at the social media that's coming in from a geographic perspective, the tips where they're coming in from, and be able to kind of coalesce all that and grade it and decide what really should be prioritized so that the agents, with probably pretty limited bandwidth right now, can take the most important things. The Bureau is also using some really cool artificial intelligence right now to help score. But the thing that I think is the most comforting to us in the public is that the Bureau also has some standardized protocols where they have two sets of eyes look at each thing before it's thrown out as something not worth following up on. So there's a check and balance system. There's a process in place to examine it. There's artificial intelligence trying to coalesce it and understand it. And then when you bring in the geography and the things that I spent so much time on the last 20 years, you can then start to look at it geographically and weigh it and really see what's making sense before you send people out and start knocking on doors.
We're out of time for tonight, but a big thank you. Mike King, great to see you. Kenneth Gray, appreciate your insight. The public has responded in a big way. As we've been saying, the tip lines are lighting up. But we know there is someone out there who knows a whole lot more and is not speaking. That is the person who needs to step up, show some humanity, and help bring Nancy home. I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation continues. There you have it. If you want to see more in-depth reporting on the latest true crime stories, you can see me every weeknight, 8 p.m. Eastern on Closing Arguments. Thank you so much for downloading. And as always, please don't forget to hug the kids.
This podcast is a production of Court TV. Go to CourtTV.com for more content, trials on demand, and to find out how to watch Court TV in your area.